right now I'm just working on getting this foam smooth and shaped to where I want it. Once it's there, I'm gonna fiberglass it and try to get a nice finish on it. And this will be my plug that I'll eventually use to make a mold out of. This is gonna be a lot different than my typical guitar builds, so I'll try to do my best to explain what I'm doing. But obviously I can't go into that much detail, otherwise this video would be 2 hours long. So just try to stay with me here, and I'll try to show what I'm doing, and hopefully it will all make sense. I'm getting ready to make the mold out of this. Right now I'm just applying some PVA mold release so that the resin doesn't stick to the plug when I pour it. Alright, here's where we're at. The outside of the mold is a bit messy, but the mold surface looks pretty good actually. I did kind of have to tear up the plug to get it removed, but that doesn't really matter because I don't need that anymore. Next up is to cut up some pieces of carbon fiber and get a body laid up. This is just a plain weave carbon fiber, not totally sure what weight it is, but it is pretty thick. I think I'm going to go with this for the body surface. That'll be on the outside. This is a twill weave, and I'm going to use this as basically just as additional material to lay up. But I'll also cut up some smaller pieces to fill in the spaces that need a little bit more structural integrity. For the layup, I've got some different materials that I'm using. This is like a plastic film that I'll use to wrap everything up in, like a bag at the very end. This is just like cotton cloth or something, but it's used to soak up additional resin that gets pulled from the vacuum. And this is it's a release film so that all of the other material doesn't stick to the body when it cures. I know this is a lot of confusing stuff that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense yet, but just try to stay with me here and I'll try to show everything. I'm using a slow cure resin, so I have roughly 30 to 40 minutes right now of work time, but that's going to go by real fast since I have a ton of layers of carbon fiber to lay up, and I also have to get all the fabrics and the film on, as well as pull the vacuum before the resin sets. Alright, camera died while I was laying up the materials and I didn't have enough time to go grab another battery, but here it is. I've got the vacuum pulling and everything looks pretty good and pressed down. This is the little outlet that's connected to my vacuum pump over here. I don't have a perfect seal, so I'll probably just run the pump for another few hours until the resin's at least somewhat cured. Got some PVA residue on the body, so I'll have to get that wiped off, and then I'm going to start working on building a top for this. But looks good. I put a 3/4 inch piece of maple in the body here to add support for the neck joint, and it's also going to give more surface area for the top to attach to. These are curved linings, and I'm going to glue these up around the entire perimeter of the body. and that's also just going to give something more surface area for the top to glue down to. And lastly, I have these two maple struts that are going to go down the length of the top, and they're going to be inset into this block of wood, and that's going to provide some extra support for the string tension and the bridge. I'm actually using a pre-made neck and neck block for this guitar, and so the neck block just kind of squeezes into this slot here, but I'll get that mounted more permanently later on in the build. So I've got all of the lining in, but the edge of the body isn't completely flat. So what I've come up with is basically just a giant sanding block, and it's just a bunch of sandpaper glued down. And so it'll take a while, but it should sand this edge totally flat, and I'll have a good surface to glue the top to. Alright, so I've got these struts glued into place on the top. The next thing I'm adding is this little maple wedge, which is going to give some extra support for where the bridge is going. So I'll get that glued in, and then it will be time to get the top glued onto the body. Acoustic guitar bridges aren't typically bolted down, but because I'm a bit worried about the adhesion between the carbon fiber and the ebony bridge, I've decided to bolt it down instead of risking the bridge potentially flying off the guitar. Like always, I'll play a demo at the end, but first I want to share a few thoughts on this project. It's not my prettiest guitar by any means, but it is the first acoustic I've done, so I'm actually just happy that it works. It makes noise, which is good. I kind of view this project more as an experiment than an art piece like my other guitars. Structurally, this thing feels super solid. I haven't had any issues with it staying in tune. It just feels like a regular wooden acoustic guitar. One thing I really don't like is how the neck joint area looks, and I knew it was going to look like this. I could have designed that better so that the block sits inside of the carbon fiber, but it just would have made the mold a bit more complex. There's a lot of things I could have changed or done better on this guitar, but I'm cool with how it turned out. I did stay with the string through design instead of adding pins, and since I did that, I probably could have gotten away with not bolting the bridge on and just gluing it down. Even though there is a bit of tension still pulling the bridge, it's not nearly what it would have been if I had used pins instead of string through. Another thing you'll notice is that I didn't put any fret dots or markers on. I've just decided to keep this guitar super plain and simple. I also don't really use fret markers all that much, especially when playing acoustic. So there are a few companies that make carbon fiber acoustics, but I've never played one before, so the only real sound comparison I have is just a more traditional wooden acoustic. I don't think this guitar sounds fantastic, but I also don't think it sounds that bad. It's got a different sound to it. There's so many factors that go into the sound, especially on an acoustic guitar. Like the wood or the material used to build the guitar is a huge factor. So there's a lot of different things that I could potentially do if I redesign this to make it sound better. The cool part about building with carbon fiber is that I can really make this guitar whatever shape I want just because I'm using a mold. So with all that said, I think I will probably revisit the carbon fiber acoustic idea one day and try to do a complete carbon fiber guitar with the neck also being composite, and maybe trying some other different things with it. I had a lot of fun building this thing. It was kind of nice to change up the build process for once. All right, let's get to the demo. The sound in the demo is straight audio, so there's no editing or effects added. As always, you guys can follow my work on Instagram at BurlesArt.